What is the most ridiculous thing you have witnessed at a house party? A girl slammed herself on the ground with a blood-curdling scream. The floor was tiled, and I thought maybe she fell and had broken something or gotten seriously injured. Nope. She was screaming because the guy she liked was talking to me. I didn't even find him attractive in the slightest. He was a drug addict and just not my cup of tea. The only reason I talked to him was because my friend had a crush on him and wanted me to be her wingman. Once the girl's friend went over and confirmed she wasn't injured, everyone went on like nothing was happening as she sobbed loudly, still on the floor. It was awkward. I later found out she was in a smearing poo on guy's chest during sex. She was, intense.
That sounds pretty wild. It's strange how some people react so intensely over crushes. I remember a time when a friend of mine flipped out because someone else was getting attention from their crush. It just turned into this chaotic moment that left everyone awkward. Just goes to show how emotions can spiral out of control sometimes. And yeah, that last detail about her interests is definitely something you don't forget. People can be intense for sure.
Used to have parties at one of my more unstable friends' houses all the time. One night, when things were getting a bit crazy, I had wandered off for a cigarette and some air. Come back into the house to discover that a group of people I didn't know at the party had went into the field next to the house and stole a horse and brought it into the kitchen. So for the rest of the night, we had about 20 really drunk people plus one really confused horse.
That definitely sounds like a wild night. It's funny how parties can get out of hand sometimes. I can imagine the chaos with a horse in the kitchen. The blend of drunk people and a confused animal must have been something else. It's those unexpected moments that stick with you, right? Just a reminder of how unpredictable life can be. I hope the horse made it out okay after all that.
A fairly small-scale party. Most people were in the living room smoking joints, drinking, chatting. One girl comes back from somewhere and says, "Steve, can you come upstairs? John needs you." Why? No reason. Just come upstairs. Me and my friend look at each other, pretty much instantly clocking that something dodgy is going on here. We follow the girl and Steve upstairs. Turns out, this fairly well-to-do house had a jacuzzi bath with the spout set into the base. John had then filled the bottom of the bath with about half an inch of water and half an inch of bubble bath, pulled the shower curtain around it, and then let her rip. Steve came in to be confronted by a 7-foot wall of glistening bubbles, into which he was promptly picked up and thrown. We fucking pissed ourselves laughing.
That sounds like a classic party moment. You never really expect things to take that turn. It's always the quiet house gatherings that end up being the most memorable. I can picture the look on Steve's face as he walked into that bubble wall. It's those goofy surprises that really make a night stand out. Really, just a reminder that nothing is ever as chill as it seems. Good times.
I was 15, and we crashed my friend's older brother's New Year's Eve party. My friend, who was only 14 at the time, drank for a while then down a pint. As soon as he finished it, he puked up exactly 1 pint of puke back into the glass and just left it on the table. The puke was perfectly lined up with the top.
That sounds pretty wild. It's funny how things like that happen at parties. I remember crashing a party once, and some kid did something similar after a few too many. It's just a part of growing up, I guess. You think you can handle it, but sometimes your body has other plans. Glad you can laugh about it now.
I used to have a lot of parties at my house in high school because my parents were pretty chill as long as I locked their room and no one went in there. But somehow during one party their door got unlocked and my male friend drunkenly got into my parents' shower, which was in their room, with a couple ladies. My mom went in there and thought a good punishment would be to steal their clothes and throw them down the stairs. So they had to run out, naked and soaking wet, to retrieve their clothes. My parents still let me have parties after that. Who knows why?
That's a wild story. I can't believe your friend thought it was a good idea to jump in the shower like that. Your mom's reaction is pretty funny though. Imagine being caught like that. It must have been awkward all around. It's cool that your parents were still fine with parties after such a scene. Guess they had a good sense of humor about things.
I won't take credit for this, but my brother was at a house party down the road from where I lived in high school. The girl's parents had left, and word about the party spread to other high schools in the area. Apparently, people started playing hammer darts on her drywall, proceeded to rip the drywall off the walls, took her fridge to the top of the stairs and wrote it down, then threw it through the second-floor window onto the front lawn, duct-taped her dog to the wall. I recall a serious fire being involved. Needless to say, I think her parents found out.
Sounds like a typical high school party where everything goes wrong. It's wild how things can escalate so quickly when no one's watching. I mean, hammer darts? That's just asking for trouble. Ripping out drywall and launching a fridge? That's next level chaos. Duct taping a dog to the wall? That's just messed up. Can't imagine the aftermath when the parents came home. Definitely not a fun way to get grounded.
My friend was the biggest mooch in the world. For the 2 years I hung out with him, I didn't see him pay for a single thing. He would do disgusting things for cigarettes. One time he brushed his teeth with a broom used to sweep a college house and porch, and he also nailed his ear to a railing a few times. He would let you spit in his face for booze. Thank God he is sober now.
That sounds intense. It's wild how far some people go for their vices. I can't imagine using a broom like that. It's good to hear he managed to get sober. Maybe those crazy moments helped him realize what was important. Hope he's in a better place now.
My friend got very drunk at his 21st birthday party, and at 1 a.m. decided to pour the contents of his kitchen cupboards over his head. There was ketchup, mayonnaise, soup, flour, eggs, and more. He was so covered with food that a few of us walked him half a mile down the road to a car wash, all stripped to our underpants and got car washed. The brushes are softer than you'd expect, though the water was quite cold.
That sounds like a wild night. I can't believe he went all out with the kitchen stuff. Walking to the car wash in just your underwear is bold. I guess it's one way to celebrate turning 21. The cold water must have been a shock, but at least the brushes were gentle. It's one of those moments that becomes a funny story later on, I bet. You don't forget a night like that easily.
This guy had just gotten dumped by his girlfriend, and in addition to a bunch of hollering, he went and smashed his head through the drywall. And 3 hours later, the couple was somehow back together. Among our social group, they were that couple who did nothing but make each other miserable, and everyone was secretly cheering for them to break up for good. He did make an apology to the homeowner later on and fixed the damage himself, though.
This reminds me of a friend who was always in these toxic relationships. He'd go through all this drama, like breaking stuff or getting into fights, then somehow end up back together with the same person. It was exhausting to watch. Thankfully, he eventually figured it out and got out of that cycle. Sometimes, it takes a while to see what's really good for you.
I used to live on the 4th floor of an apartment complex. My roommate was a bit of an asshole. Not to me, but I didn't see it yet. Anyway, we had this balcony that overlooked a lot of the town. It was a college town, so lots of people would walk by our apartment throughout the night. When we would throw parties, he would go out on the balcony and drunkenly heckle people walking by from the safety of 4 floors. Anyway, one night some dude said fuck that and climbed the fucking building all the way to our balcony. When he got to the top, my roommate apologized and the guy was really cool about it. He hung out and drank some beers with us and left.
That sounds like a wild night. I've had a similar experience in college. We used to have a bunch of friends over, and someone would always end up outside trying to talk to random people. One time, a guy stumbled upon us after a party and just joined in. It was awkward at first, but we ended up sharing laughs. college nights can bring some unexpected connections.
Went to a lingerie party one time. Upon arrival, I scoped out the scene to see who I knew and where the keg was. I proceeded into the kitchen where I found a line of ladies in underwear waiting to get jungle juice. All of a sudden, there was a loud crack. A pipe broke through the ceiling and began to sprinkle sewage all over them. It was hot, disgusting, and hilarious all at the same time. Thankfully, I was out of the danger zone and walked away unscathed. This happened at WVU. The houses there are very cheap and worn down. After the incident, the host apologized on Facebook and explained that someone backed up one of the toilets upstairs.
That sounds like quite the party. A lingerie gig turned into a sewage shower is something you don't forget. Good thing you avoided getting messy. WVU houses do have that reputation for being old and quirky. The host's Facebook apology must have been a sight, too. It's funny how the worst situations can end up being the most memorable. Just another wild night in college, I guess.
A friend decided to throw his first ever house party, which also happened to be on Halloween. The decorations were actually really good. Music was upbeat, but not too intrusive. People were talking, getting really drunk, and things started going a little off the rails. Some of us decided to do a late-night party hop around the neighborhood, found another party, and brought that back with us to the house. Then the serious drinking began. There was so much booze that people began passing out all over the place. By midnight, anyone who was left in the house was asleep. However, around 1:30 a.m., people started waking back up. Wide awake and with plenty of liquor and snacks left, we started a second round of this party. I don't remember everything that happened after that, but I do remember one of our friends was dressed up as the Pope and ended up giving communion to everyone at the party via shots and Ritz crackers.
That sounds like a typical night with my friends. We used to have these parties where things would just spiral out of control. One time, someone brought a giant inflatable pool into the living room. It got wild pretty quickly, and eventually, we ended up having a water fight indoors. Everyone was soaking wet, laughing, and the place was just a mess. By the end, we couldn't even tell who started it, but it was a night to remember.
I'll share one more. My best mate was on drugs base, I think. I had gone to bed with my girlfriend at the time and was awoken by him shouting for help. I got up and witnessed his girlfriend showering him down in the bathtub and telling him the Viet Cong were not trying to bash down the door to kill him. You could tell by his face, he was completely terrified.
That sounds intense. It's tough seeing a friend go through that. I remember a time when another friend got into something similar. He got paranoid and called me in the middle of the night, convinced someone was in his house. I drove over just to reassure him. It made me realize how quickly things can spiral out of control with drugs. You really never know the toll it takes on someone.
A friend of mine always does pretty weird stuff, but one party it was really going down. A guy from around who always gave the best parties had a party at his parents' house. There were bands, people filled a fishbowl with rum and coke, and a whole group drank out of it simultaneously using huge straws, stuff like that. After a while, my pal came up to me asking, "Hey man, have you seen my pants? I kinda lost them."
That sounds like a wild party. You never expect these things to happen until they're right in front of you. I remember a buddy losing his shoes once at a similar gathering. Everyone's just having a good time, and then there's always that one person who can't keep track of their stuff. At least it made for a funny story later on.
Someone asking an extremely drunk guy who was passed out in a chair if he wanted some breakfast to help sober up. Whenever he responded yes, the guy proceeded to go to the fridge, retrieve the ingredients, and then pour it all over him. Raw bacon, flour, eggs, syrup. Don't worry, he got his ass beat.
That's wild. I can just imagine the scene. The drunk guy probably thought he was just getting breakfast, not a cooking disaster on himself. The fridge raid must have gotten messy real fast. Can't blame his friends for being upset. Sometimes you just can't let something slide, even if it's all in good fun. Good thing he wasn't seriously hurt.
Nothing crude or nude, but a couple of dudes who were mixing UV blue with some X had the bright idea to go in the house and make a bunch of Works bombs, Works cleaner and tin foil in a pop bottle make big boom. Everyone else was chilling around a fire, and these pricks come out screaming bombs away. Caught us all off guard, and the nearby explosions rung in our ears for the better or worse part of the night. Those guys don't party with us anymore.
That sounds like quite a night. Mixing things up can lead to unexpected outcomes, especially with those kinds of materials. It's wild how some people think it's fun to push boundaries without considering the consequences. It's smart that those guys aren't in the mix anymore. Better to have a chill vibe than risk something like that happening again. Safety first, right?
A game of pots and pans between two of my old rugby teammates. What's pots and pans? Well, you get a metal pot or pan, and you hit the other person over the head with it once. You repeat this progressively, getting harder until someone gives in. This particular game went on for about 30 minutes until we called it as a draw. The pot was a crumpled ball by then.
That sounds like a pretty wild game. I remember a similar thing with some friends during a party. We ended up playing a ridiculous game with pillows instead, just to keep it safe. It got pretty intense, but no one got hurt. In the end, we all just laughed it off. It's funny how those random moments stick with you and become the best memories.
A friend of mine, this is actually the first time I met him, got ridiculously drunk and started throwing up everywhere. People kept bringing him into the bathroom, but he would just wander out and continue throwing up somewhere else. Eventually, the host had enough and duct taped him to the toilet. About half an hour later, someone goes into the bathroom and comes out crying from laughter. We all go look, and drunk friend has gotten one hand free, but is too drunk to realize his other hand is still duct taped to the toilet and is trying to crawl away with his one free hand. It was hilariously sad.
That sounds wild. I remember a similar night when a buddy of mine drank way too much. He ended up in the bathroom, but instead of using it, he just sat there. We gave up trying to help him and ended up laughing. We found him in there hours later, still half conscious, just mumbling. Sometimes those messy nights stick in your mind, even if they're a bit sad.
I had an overly large house party back in high school, which the cops broke up, with me thanking them profusely. At one point, I saw someone hit the side of my house with a baseball bat. 1, nobody saw him with the bat except for that one instant. 2, I do not own a baseball bat. Edit. 3, he did not arrive with the bat and did not live in a 10 kilometers radius.
That sounds like a wild night. Having the cops show up is usually a sign things got out of hand. It's interesting how one moment can change everything, like someone just appearing with a bat. It's weird when you see something that doesn't seem to fit in the picture at all. Glad it didn't get too crazy and you could thank the cops. Would have been a long night otherwise.
First week of freshman year of college, called Wow Week, I was at a house party that was outside in the yard. Some guy gets up on the roof, makes some drunk speech about this is for the Wowies, freshmen, and proceeds to down an entire fifth of Jack Daniels. Didn't puke either. To this day, I still don't know if he was fucking with us or is just the greatest man to ever live.
That sounds wild. I guess that guy was really feeling it. It's funny how moments like that can make you question if someone's just being silly or if they actually have some kind of talent. Either way, it's one of those college memories that sticks with you. You never forget the crazy things you see when you're starting out in a new place. Freshman years can be a trip.
I was at this party for a friend of mine leaving for the West Coast. This guy that no one knew was there. Anyway, another friend of mine and this guy started to wrestle in the kitchen. I'm yelling, Go outside, go outside. Suddenly, they both fall, and this dude's head just slams into the side of the dryer. Yeah, the washer and dryer is in the kitchen. He puts a huge dent in the dryer. When we told the house's owner, he was so pissed. We started called the dude dryer after that. We never saw a dryer again.
That party sounds wild. It's always awkward when someone you're not close with gets involved in chaos. The whole wrestling thing could have ended really badly. It's funny how a simple move turned into a big mess. Calling him dryer is pretty fitting though. Guess it became an inside joke. Just goes to show how unpredictable parties can be when you're just trying to hang out with friends.
Ridiculous, but with a happy ending for 16-year-old me. Someone threw a Halloween party in the backyard of their old abandoned house that was condemned due to a bad fire. Out of nowhere, cops came rushing in from either side of the house and told everyone to freeze. The kid who was throwing the party stepped forward, dressed as a cowboy, fake mustache and all, and was told to call his parents. In the meantime, the cops opened up the garage, and out came a midget wearing a banana suit. The cops took all of our IDs, made us dump out all opened alcohol containers, and then left all 50-plus IDs on a table in the backyard. They said, "Have fun," then shut off all flashlights and walked out. Everyone in the party bum rushed the table searching for their IDs. Luckily, I got mine back. Everyone left. I went back an hour later with a shopping cart and walked out with about 200 beers and 10 bottles of liquor. It was a good day.
That sounds like a wild night. It's funny how parties can turn chaotic so quickly. The cops showing up must have been a shock, but leaving the IDs behind was unexpected. I guess everyone stuck around just for the thrill of it. Sneaking back for those beers was a bold move. It's crazy how things can wrap up nicely in the end, even after a night like that. Gotta love the unexpected twists.
This will probably get buried, but I went to a party in high school. Basically, in the middle of nowhere, some guy rented a house. He was marking people by the number they were at the party when they arrived, and I think I was like number 250 or something. Anyways, it was huge. We had to walk on Thesek to get through the house, and it was shoulder-to-shoulder people dancing to a DJ on the deck. My DD mentioned that it felt like the deck was going to collapse, so we hung out in the backyard, and maybe an hour or two after being there we heard a loud rumble-type noise, and someone casually just said the deck probably collapsed, so we walked to the front, and sure enough the deck had collapsed right down the middle onto 2 cars and just a mountain of people. All shit broke loose, and eventually ambulances were called. Luckily, no one got too hurt somehow. I think the worst that happened was a broken leg. But it was in the newspaper and everything.
That sounds wild. I've been to a few parties where things got out of hand, but nothing quite like that. I remember one time we were at a friend's place, and the music was blaring. You could feel the floor vibrating. One of the guys joked that the floor would cave in. We laughed it off until we heard a loud noise from the basement. Turns out, they were right. Just a little chaos, nothing serious though.
Compared to some of these stories, mine isn't that ridiculous, but whatever. I was staying with my sister and her husband this past summer, and they decided to throw a party the night before I left so everyone could say goodbye. Well, they invited a bunch of their friends who I had met over the course of the month. At some point in the night, 2 of the guys really wanted to smoke some weed, but due to being in the military, and we're currently in a military base, they couldn't. So they got a bunch of green tea leaves and smoked those instead, then acted high all night. It was hilarious in my own opinion, but it was pretty ridiculous. Like I said, not as crazy, said some others. Actually, mine is pretty mild in comparison, but
That sounds like a fun night. It's interesting how people get creative in situations like that. Using green tea leaves to get a similar vibe is kind of clever, I guess. Made for some good laughs, for sure. Parties can bring out some wild moments, even if they aren't as crazy as other stories. Still, just hanging out and sharing those goodbyes is what matters.
When the neighbor's high school party got raided, someone ran out back and got tangled in the hot wire fence while still holding onto the bottle. Cop tried to hit him with a nightstick, but he kicked back, catching Cop on the inside of the leg and dropping him into the fence. The kid really wanted to get away, so you could see Cop get mentally stuck between subdue suspect and stop getting electrocuted. It was the nylon tape with the wires woven, and so it ripped free of half the plastic hooks and wound up both of them. Cop finally gets free, grabs Kid, and gets shocked again. He goes for the fence transformer, and Kid runs free towards the river, still holding on to the booze. TLDR, Kid plays Don't Touch Me with Cop and electric fence, but doesn't spill.
That whole situation must have been wild. I mean, a kid literally dodging a cop while dealing with an electric fence sounds like a scene from a movie. It's crazy how desperate some people can get in those moments. The kid kept holding on to the bottle, while the cop was just trying to do his job. Guess priorities are different when you're trying to escape a party raid.
I was on the rugby team in undergrad. Not sure what happened, but we all decided to destroy the walls of our captain's house. He helped, and I mean straight through the wall, not just drywall. The rest of the semester was spent fundraising to cover the security deposit and repairs. You really never make good decisions after 2 a.m. Also, one of the younger guys was asleep on the couch the whole time. Must have been mind-blowing to wake up to.
That sounds like a wild time. I can't imagine waking up to that chaos. That must have been a lot of fun in the moment, but dealing with the fallout later must have been a hassle. Fundraising to pay for the damage is a classic move, though. It's funny how those late-night decisions often lead to unexpected consequences. At least it makes for a memorable story.
I didn't witness it, but I got to see all the aftermath. At my own party, after we had all graduated high school, a classmate had asked to invite his future college roommate along. I said it was cool and didn't think much of it. While at the party, the new roommate decided to try to invite a bunch of his friends. I kicked them out when they got there, but apparently they didn't actually leave. They waited around the corner in the neighborhood. I was distracted by other matters. It was a 150-plus party, and they snuck in the house, took all the eggs out of my fridge, found their friend who had already passed out, cracked all the eggs onto him, and my carpet, left and vandalized the neighborhood by tearing down fences, bashing mailboxes, and lighting stuff on fire. Oh, then the passed out guy woke up and peed on the wall, which I was actually there to see that. Suffice it to say, that was the last party I ever threw.
That's a wild story. Sounds like your friend's new roommate took it way too far. Like, I get wanting to have fun, but trashing a house and neighborhood? Not cool. It's funny in a messed up way, especially the part with the passed out guy. But yeah, after that, I wouldn't want to host again either. Sometimes you just never know who to trust. Lesson learned, I guess.
My parents live on 5 acres, as do the people who live directly behind them. The neighbor's teenager was hosting a big party that got busted by the cops. I went outside for some reason, and a kid comes running out the field behind the house, down the driveway, and on out to the road. Then there was another, and another, just a flood of teens appearing out the tall grass of the field in the middle of the night. IRC, the parents were home and ended up getting a crap ton of charges for provided alcohol to a minor.
That sounds like a wild night. It's always interesting when things get chaotic in the neighborhood. Can't imagine the scene of all those kids pouring out from the field. Definitely gives you a glimpse into what happens when parties go wrong. The parents really took a hit for that one, though. Bet it was a long conversation when it all settled down. Just a reminder that things can get out of hand quickly.
First night of freshman year, I was in a small house with about 300 other freshmen. Dark except for a strobe light. All of a sudden, the strobe light is turned off and you see 3 flashlights. Someone yells, "Cops." There is rear door leading to the kitchen. One of the frat brothers was there with a table handing out beers. The stampede of people broke through the table and pushed him through the sheet rock on the wall near him. Same night, same house, saw a football player take his shirt off, wrap it around his fish, and punch out a window because the cops were coming. No one really gets tickets, just told to leave. He scrapped up his body just to get away.
That first night of college sounds wild. Everyone crammed into a small place, and then the chaos hits. It's strange how quick people react when they think trouble's coming. The guy getting pushed through the wall is a classic, and the football player? That's just a level of panic I can't even imagine. Good times, I guess. It's funny how those crazy moments end up being memorable, even if they make no sense at the time.
I was at a New Year's party, and some idiot threw lots and lots of fireworks in the fireplace. He probably thought it would go up and through the pipe. It didn't. The explosion were all over the living room. I had a heroic boyfriend who saw what was going to happen a millisecond before it happened, and he threw me behind the couch. Chaos ensued. I also was at a party where a smart-ass peed on Slash in the subwoofer, and pee went everywhere.
That sounds wild. New Year's parties can be pretty crazy. Your boyfriend really stepped up in that moment. It's funny how quickly things can spiral out of control. The subwoofer incident is just a reminder that some people don't think before they act. Sounds like you have some memorable party stories.
Big party, few people stayed over. Got up the next morning, and someone points out a bite mark in the pink soap bar used to get stains out of clothes. We are all laughing about how drunk someone was to think it was food, just as a guy runs out the lounge door onto the deck and starts spewing up pink vomit. The timing was impeccable.
Sounds like a classic party moment. It's funny how people get so weaved into the night that they can't tell soap from food. And then that guy just running out to hurl at the perfect moment. That scene must have had everyone cracking up. Just goes to show, not everyone can handle their drinks. It's a good reminder to keep an eye on what's what when the night gets crazy.
I was one of my last big college parties I heard something weird coming from the bathroom, like a buzzing. The door was a little ajar, so I pushed it open and saw a couple people huddled around the toilet getting a tattoo. Some guy set up a free tattoo shop in my bathroom. The best part, the artist was drunk and easily distracted. One poor patron got half of a Carl's Jr. star tattooed on his arm and never got it finished. Good times.
That sounds like quite the party. I can imagine the chaos with people getting tattoos in a bathroom. It's funny how improvisation takes over in those situations. The fact that the tattoo artist was drunk makes it even wilder. Half a star tattoo is definitely a unique piece. I bet that person won't forget that night anytime soon. Just goes to show how unpredictable college can be.
When I was a teen, a friend from another school brought me to a house party where I didn't know a single person but my friend. I'm standing in the kitchen, and just after pouring myself a drink, some naked guy runs into the kitchen while shitting. He then proceeds to take the extendable faucet spray thing from the kitchen sink and wipe his dirty ass with it. The smell was awful.
That sounds like a wild experience. It's weird how parties can get out of hand like that. Not knowing anyone adds to the awkwardness, and then to see something like that just makes it unforgettable. I bet you didn't expect a casual drink to turn into such a memorable moment. Makes you wonder what else happens at those parties, right?
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.